So the next question is from Mahdi Muradi. Can you introduce yourself and your institution, please?
Hi, this is Mahdi Muradi. Actually, I'm from a private company, Innonet Inc. from Canada. We have been able to develop a new technology based on the chitosan or chitosan nanoparticles. It shows very great in vitro and also in vivo efficacy to inhibit all major microorganisms. It's also an organic material. We have been able actually to incorporate that nanoparticles into the different type of the polymers and also textiles to introduce the self-sanitizing characteristics to those biomaterials. I'm wondering if that kind of applications are somehow suitable for your institute in order to develop more in vivo studies on these new materials that we developed.
Yeah, and I think a lot of these types of things, there are a lot of synergies and the different types of biomaterials. So I definitely encourage you and everyone else who's got similar types of kind of systems to offline communicate with us, and we'll be very, very happy to kind of push things forward. I think that, and that's really where a lot of the exciting stuff comes in. Once people actually start putting in the right expertise together, it just I think would be fantastic. So I can already see a few different things about the chitosan nanoparticles that would make sense in our material. Wonderful, thank you.
Thank you, wonderful. So Rohin Shyam. Oops. I can't unmute you. Oh, there you go.
There. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Am I audible? All right. So very good morning to you guys. My name is Rohin. I'm from Vellore Institute of Technology, India. I'd already posted a question. My question was more related to the regulatory side. So in personalized medicine or tissue engineering, so let's say a 3D printed, bioprinted patient-specific cardiac patch, there will definitely be challenges from the regulatory side. So how does one overcome those specific, let's say, challenges from the regulations? How do you address?
Well, I think the first thing is to really try to understand that the regulations are at the end are going to be useful for protection of people, but also of the company, right? So because if there are adverse issues, then no one wants that, right? So a lot of but at the same time, you want to kind of make sure that you're doing all the safety and efficacy type things that are required without breaking the bank, right? So at the end of the day, you need to still pay the bills and push things forward. So I think there is some kind of a balance that you want to do all the important things that are required and really shows the safety and efficacy. At the same time, if there's pathways that you can do that without having to spend $30 million, then that could be good. So what we've been working at is to really look at the predicate devices. Are there other things like this that have similar types of characteristics that we can use and justify that, okay, it's going to be just as kind of safe and efficacious as those other things. So that's one of the ways I think to deal with regulations. I think there are huge differences between something that really needs a clinical trial of a significant degree and other things that are can potentially have a smaller clinical trial based on some predicate devices. So I think that's kind of been our approach to kind of look at what are the different ways in which we can ensure that things are going to be safe and efficacious, and at the same time make sure that we're taking the pathway that's going to allow the company to succeed.
Yeah, okay, cool. Thanks. Just an extension to that question, if you don't mind. It's the same. Like, let's say when you're talking about patient-specific one, you can't go back and forth trying to get an FDA approval for a patient-specific patch,
Yeah. And I think some of those very specific things like 3D printed Yeah, so are you guys good?
Yeah.
Mohsen and Hossein, you guys are saying something in the background. Am I working okay? Am I okay? Yeah. Can everyone hear me? I guess, yeah, that's because I can hear you guys.
Please continue.
We can't hear Mohsen now.
Okay. But what I was going to say is that, with very specific things that need to be tailored every time to a patient, I think there's still a lot of questions about what's the best way to get approval, and things like 3D printed medical devices or 3D printed things which need to be tailored every time. I think for those, there's still some work that the FDA has to do with some of the companies to really create the right process for it.
Okay. Thank you very much for answering my question.
Well, can you hear me now?
Now
Yes.
I can hear you.
Wonderful. So let's
You
go
were
on.
waving up and down. I got scared. Yeah.
It's like, yeah. Well, we have questions in the question box as well, which I wanted to ask. So we have Dr. Pepas, who have asked a question about how do you know that an idea can be commercialized?
Wow. So first of all, just getting asked by Dr. Pepas is a big honor. Dr. Pepas, as I mentioned during the talk, is one of the leading pioneers in the area of biomaterials. So with my humble opinion, I can try to answer that question. I think when it comes to translation, I think some of the things that are important is to try to understand if a particular area is actually an area that needs to have major innovation in it, and that major innovation is actually going to change the standard of care. There are areas that are, so when I interact with clinicians, a lot of times clinicians come up with very specific problems that are very tailored to their procedure that's only done, let's say, a couple hundred times a year in the entire US. And even though that's an important problem for them, it's not necessarily going to be a good basis of a startup company. So I think for me, it's been, and that's been a learning experience, because there's been times that I spend a lot of time on something like that, and at the end I realized, okay, I maybe shouldn't have started. So I think really understanding the patient need and how big that need is, and how many people it affects, I think is important. And then second thing is how well the idea is. What I like to call is the 10x. How's what you're doing makes that state of the art 10 times better? Because if it's a 10% better, then sometimes even if everything makes sense, but it's just not well differentiated enough from the existing state of the art to kind of justify a lot of investment. So if what is the 10x and how important is the problem? And I think if some of those things start kind of making sense, then I would then try to kind of push it through. And again, I'm sure Dr. Pepas knows a lot more about all of these. So but that's my humble opinion.
Well, thank you very much, Ali, and then thank you very much, Dr. Pepas, for asking the question and also participating in this talk. So we have another question from Dr. Woo-Soo Kim from Simon Fraser University in Vancouver. So the question is about a method of encouraging graduate students or postdocs to the direction of entrepreneurship. What is your magic? Sometimes it's difficult to convince or persuade the grad students to follow